aika huivit ylös nostaa. SJK! Ei me luovuteta koskaan, ei koskaan. SJK! Jos et tajunnut tosta, niin se Seinäjoen jalkapallokerho. SJK! Ja muita joo, eikä tuu, se on meidän kerho. Pallo keskelle.
Moi, I'm Mark.
And I'm Jules, and remember, this is pre-season, so if things don't go according to plan, then, you know, it's just a practice game. And this is the Seinäjoki Football Supporters Podcast, bringing you news, reviews and interviews especially today, from SJK Seinäjoki.
Yeah, but we're doing it in English for an international fan base. So you've teased it, Jules, but what's in this week's episode?
Well, we've got a very special guest, former head of recruitment at SJK Seinäjoki, Paul Riley.
Yeah, and we're also going to do a quick preview of the Liigacup, which starts in about 10 days' time. And we're going to have a right old whinge about the Veikkausliiga fixtures for 2025 as well.
We've got because Mark's got history about the Gaza photo about swearing. So we got a ban on swearing here, so it's going to be really difficult to cover that.
It'll be a short preview of the Veikkausliiga fixtures. Yeah, yep. We share the same opinion for and with many of the other SJK fans. I know that, so we'll touch on that at the end. But I reckon it's just about time to introduce our guest, Paul Riley. Paul, welcome to the pod.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, we've been talking about doing this for quite a while now, and at first I thought, oh, let's wait until you come over again in the autumn and we'll meet face to face. And then I thought, oh, well, now the season's over, you haven't come. Let's do it during the closed season when there's new players coming in. And then we heard you were leaving.
Timing's not been great.
No, but we are going to talk a little bit about what you've been doing at the club over the last few years, and then look at some of the players that are coming into the club now. And I think for me, that's going to be really interesting, just to give us something to look out for in some of these players as well. I think we heard that you were moving on at the end of season, Clop It and Meet the Manager event, really, with Richie Dorman and Stevie Grieve. And I think they were clearly the most disappointed in the room that you were leaving, and then not with me and Jules not far behind, because we thought that we were going to miss this opportunity. So great to have you here today. We've mentioned your title a couple of times, but what was your role within the club? How did it all work?
Yeah, there's quite a grand title, as is kind of regular for football these days. I mean, I've been working with the club since the latter part of Honsu's time.
I think that'll be a surprise to some people.
Yeah, so
me included.
Yeah, so 3.5 years in total I was there. I first got introduced to Rich through Stevie, because I was working with Stevie and some of his other clubs that he's worked for before, and started as a scout, basically, like a regular scout, not the posh title of head of recruitment, which is basically same as chief scout if you want to talk in old money, I guess. Obviously, it's been a remote role from England in the whole time. I've literally only ever been over to Finland once for a week, which will obviously surprise some people. But I guess that's the way modern football's coming these days, with the technology available. It's just far easier and cheaper for clubs to scout via the video. So yeah, I started off as a humble scout and gradually kind of increased my role with the club to the point last year, because I had other clients, because obviously I run a lot of consultancy for scouting, and before I had several clubs that I was working for, and then basically decided that I wanted to do it fully with SJK, and Rich was wanting and open to that, so gradually became to the point where I became like head of recruitment for the entire club, for the first team and both of the academy teams as well. So it's been a kind of gradual process, I guess, as Rich and other people in the club have kind of trusted me more and thought that I did good enough to become the main guy in recruitment by the end.
Can you tell us more about how it is now? As you said, it's all online and remote. I mean, we have the idea, or us old people, of a scout going, a rainy Tuesday night, going down a ground in a big thick jacket and watching kids play. So what's it like now? I mean, what tools do you use? What?
Yeah, I mean, the old school scout still exists. Probably not so much as they did before. I mean, it's increasingly all done by video. There's video packages that clubs can buy now that basically carry like 90% of games across the globe, and you can pay for as much of it as you want. But I guess it's just the realities of scouting in person, even in like a small country like England, and driving around, the time it takes. You can only cover X amount of games a week. You might take a long journey to the other end of the country and the player doesn't even play because they're injured or they're ill or something. I've had that happen to me before. So if you then times that on the scale of Finland, if you were to scout live in Finland at any level, I mean, you guys know the way you travel away and everything takes hours and hours and hours. It's just not a economic or efficient way of doing it. If you could do both video and lots of live scouting, it's great. But realistically, for a club of the budget and the size of the teams in Finland, it's all pretty much mostly going to be video scouting.
And does that video give you different angles of the same game? I know that the ASIC or the stadium is sort of rigged up with all kinds of cameras for analysis, and I know that Stevie and his team analyze training sessions as well as matches. Do you get the same sort of access to that when you're scouting?
Well, quick answer is no. So the setup that in a lot of the Scandinavian countries, I think it's a Scandi firm called Speedio that actually set up that rig to start with. So I can access that remotely from a laptop, but mostly if I was to scout other players in Finland, the feed that the software company puts onto the software is basically from Ruutu.
Oh, right.
So
Okay.
it's exactly what you see on a Saturday, and that will be pretty much 90% the same for other countries as well. It will basically be TV footage from whoever's broadcasting it in that country, and sometimes it will be the club itself who's videoed the game themselves and then enabled it to be uploaded. But there's all sorts of agreements that have to be in place for leagues across the world, which thankfully is all dealt with by the software company. So we just literally log in and we're able to click a button and it's all there for us.
Yeah,
How
I mean,
many games do you think
you?
Yeah, how many games do you think you need? I mean, if you're scouting a player can have a great game and then they can have a stinker. So how many games do you want to watch to get a good idea?
As many as possible. I guess
The larger the sample size, the better.
Yeah. And again, this is why data is coming into the football now a lot more as well. Because it picks up on things that you can't see or you can't remember. The data will always be there as a guide for you to look back on, not just on that single game that you might have watched, but you can compare the data game to game to game, going back for years on the databases. So someone just trying to think. So anything up probably 10 times between multiple people, just basically as much as you can. And I will watch, and Rich would watch, and Adriel would watch, and Stevie will watch, and probably
would you watch together,
well.
or would you?
No.
No.
You'd keep it separate. You don't. I mean, you could watch together, but you basically don't want to be influenced by anybody else.
Yeah.
Because realistically, how players come in, it might be someone that Stevie's been offered or he's seen and he says, "Can you take a look at this guy? I like him," and you don't want to be influenced by it. We're not there to be yes sir, no sir, and everybody say do what the coach wants or what Rich wants or what I want. Everyone's got to be on the same page, and to keep it independent and clear, it's best that you watch that alone and then you report separately and then you compare notes afterwards.
I think there's a cliche, isn't there, that people back in the day, oh, he's got a great Google Highlights reel,
Yeah.
and players being signed based on that. But this is a lot more
Well,
sophisticated
this
now.
is you say that still happens lots in professional football. Still get offered players from agents, and I guess this is why I was hired in the first place, because essentially with the budgets in Finnish football, most teams now, I mean, they've had directors of football or technical directors way before it started becoming a thing in England. It was a bigger thing in Europe before it came to England. And there's just not enough dedicated staff to do the due diligence, get my words out, as much as possible, which is what the club wanted to get away from. So you're getting offered players from agents, and there's not enough staff to do it thoroughly enough, which is why a lot of transfer. I mean, even a well-researched transfer is like a 50-50 of whether it's successful or not. So if you haven't got the due diligence in place and you're kind of signing on other people's recommendations, which happened a lot and still happens a lot, it's even worse of a hit rate. So this is why I was hired in the first place, to be someone dedicated to looking at players that got recommended and just doing the work better than it was done before.
How can you, is it just down to you personally? If you're looking at a player who's playing in South America and a player who's playing in Finland, how can you consider the effects of the different leagues? Is there a way to do that or not?
That's an excellent question. So obviously we've had lots of players over from South America. I mean, even before my time, there's guys coming from there before. You get, the answer is really difficult to assess the quality of a league compared to another league because of the different football style, the tactical, like a lot of South American football is a bit of a cliche, but it's a lot more rough and tumble and less technical. I mean, the traditional ideas of South American football is that either someone's like a fancy number 10 or they're a big defender that kicks everybody around the park, aren't they? It's the traditional, and the reality, there is some truth to that, but the football over there is quite different to Finland. So if we look at people like Jaime, who's just left, and Rojas, from their quality still sticks out on a pitch, even if the quality of the game isn't great sometimes. But it's really difficult. There's no good answer to it. You're taking risks all the time. I'd like to think we've been mostly successful over the last few years in those signings. But it's always a risk and it's difficult, and people have different ideas, and there is no correct answer to it. You're not going to know until they turn up and they report for training and you see how they are.
You mentioned the word successful, and I just wrote on my screen here, how do you judge the success of a signing? Do you have, it would be great if someone came in for 200,000 and went out for 1 million. That's successful in the trading side. But what other kind of markers do you guys use for success?
Could be, well, you ask one person would be a different answer to the next person that they'd give you. My main one that I would use was like, if they come in, how many minutes are they playing once they've come in? That's one marker, because there are a lot of signings that will come in and then they don't end up playing, which happens. It happens less, but it still happens. Whether they get sold on or not. I mean, we've had players before that we've signed and then we've sold on before they've even played a minute for us, as is the nature of football. So yeah, for me, it's about are they contributing to the team? Are they good enough to be playing in the first team? If we're talking about first team recruitment, are they playing pretty much most of the minutes? Are they contributing every week? It's not necessarily. I mean, not every player is going to be a star that you're going to sell on. A team functions with different elements. You can have your star. You need your people that be able to tackle, that can pass, that can do a bit of everything, and that's what makes a team. So, horses for courses, I'd say. But yeah, I mean, if you were to say about academy recruitment, successful would be that they move to first team, or they even if they don't make our first team, they've gone to other places to get first team football. There's been lots of those, both Finnish and foreign, in recent years. The club ethos now is to get these young players and give them a chance to make a career out of football. Finland isn't necessarily a hotbed of football. The players, have retired from the game early to go and study at university or do that. Doesn't happen in other countries much. It happens more in Finland because of the culture. So if anyone makes a living out of the game after coming here, if they're young or if they move on to greater things or if they contribute to the team, there's loads of ways to measure it. Ultimately, you look at the league table, I suppose, don't you, every year to say whether that was a successful year or not, and that's the kind of end game, I suppose.
When you say horses for courses at the start of the process, what kind of brief do you're selecting players for the requirements of the club? What sort of brief do Stevie or Richie give you? What sort of information, or
could you actually give us a specific a specific example, like what Mark just said, and like walk us through the whole process?
Yeah, so it's a lot easier now. I mean, the club has made the decision that youth is the key, and that's the way we're going to go. So that's straight off the bat. We're not going to go out and start signing 28, 29-year-olds anymore, because at the end of the day, I mean, how old was Jaime when he came? Maybe 26, 27. Yeah. That would be like a maximum that we would ever do.
Rasse's getting on a bit, Rasse. Sorry, Rasse.
Yeah, and again, but yeah, I think Rasse's
27
person left now.
Yeah, he is.
Really, he's not happy about. I know that.
Well, yeah, you just have to live with that, though, don't you?
Yeah, he feels like he's
getting old is never good.
Yeah, it's like going to work in a kindergarten for him.
Yeah, but Russ is interesting. I mean, when I first came, we were trying to chase and sign him before he went to Norway. I think he made the decision to go away. So when I met him and I told him, he was like, because he'd never met me before, and he's like, "Who are you?" And you know me from like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was funny. But what was the question? I forgot the question.
What brief do you get? And
the process, right? So yeah, first off, it's the club ethos that it's youth all the way. Secondly, it's a lot easier when the coach has a really clear way of playing, and I think Stevie's come in and he's been, again, it's a club-led ethos, but he was basically selected because he would deliver it in terms of attacking football, lots of mobility, pass and move, to try and, this exciting mobile football that we're playing mostly successfully. So each position, number one, are they capable of moving quickly? And if you're not, then they can't come. It doesn't matter how technically good you are. If you're not able to keep up with the pay and the place and do it for 90 minutes, or, if you're not going to be able to do it within a couple of months of joining or whatever, it's just a no-go. Each position, Stevie and Tony, they set up what they want for each role. what they expect from a player in that role. So if you take like centre backs, I talked about this before, want to play don't want to defend our own box. They need to be pushing further up the field, and most of their defending will be if the ball's knocked in behind, so they can go 1v1 and run back towards goal and be mobile enough to do that. So if you like old school, what I'd call old school centre backs need not apply. They have to be, like Tiki was quick, Kelvin's quick, Falou is quick, despite the fact that he's like 6'9", but he's still agile enough to do those things. And the new guy, because Tiki's left, new guy Samuel's come in, ticks all those boxes. He's big, he's quick, he's used to playing a high line. So we started looking at Samuel like early summer. I wasn't available at the time and kept an eye on it. Gone back, he's played, he's come from the Faroe Islands, which is probably, less technically good than it is in Finland, but he's also played for national team for them, and because they're one of the better teams, they played in Europe, and we've seen him play against good teams from Europe, higher level than we are, and he was good.
And we paid a fee for him. That was the thing that really caught my attention.
Yeah, small fee, but yeah,
sorry, small fee. Are we?
No, you're never going to get the number.
Yeah,
right?
I know. It's like talking to Stevie. You never get a number out of him. But like, okay, what is small? Is it how many numbers? How many numbers would you say is small? Is it like a 5 number, 6 number?
It's never going to be 6 numbers. Never.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So so it's small then. Yeah.
Yeah. It's.
Oh, that was just like being on Panorama, Jules. You really stuck into it there.
The politician's answer. I actually answered it quite straight. It's not going to be 6 numbers. We're not in that league yet. I mean, that's the plan. I mean, I guess so it's funny because Stevie always calls it looking for unicorns, because we're talking about guys mostly even top level in Finland who are on similar salaries to like what you or I would be on, and as a normal, it's never going to be Premier League money. So you're trying to find guys that are good enough to play this great style of football, but realistically, how many of those are available that can do that and that are willing to come for no money? Because generally the better players are elsewhere in other leagues for bigger money. So Stevie always calls it looking for unicorns. So I guess if we're able to bring players in, sell them for profit like we have done over the last 2 or 3 years, then it shifts the ability to be able to attract people to come and maybe pay small fees and not just look for guys that are on a free transfer and looking for another payday. The aim is to get this balance sheet so we can get the money in. We're not relying on an owner, that we can gradually keep just getting bigger bit by bit and be able to do these things. So yeah, the brief is obviously Tiki left. We needed another centre back. They needed to be big. They needed to be powerful. They needed to be quick. They needed to be able to play a high line and play football how Stevie wants. And we went out and find them. And it's really, I've worked for clubs and people before where they go, we want a centre forward, and I'll say, well, what kind of centre forward do you want? And they'll say, well, one that scores goals, and that's it. It's like great. But it's all about, as I say, it goes back to this thing about mobility with our team. You can't come in here and be slow. It's just not going to work. So all these things.
Okay, so Tikkanen left, and you've got all the physical qualities, but Tikkanen he's a leader, captain. How can you assess that? And also you said it's a bit of a shot in the dark. You don't know what you're getting until they turn up. So these kind of grey areas where you can't put a kilometre running or something like that. You can't put a figure on it. How can you assess that, or can you assess that?
Um, not. Are we talking about like the mental factors, like of being a leader or
Yeah,
quickly
yeah,
or
mental,
what?
social. How do they get on with the teammates? Are they going to run for a brick wall or not? These kind of things.
Yeah. So there's a lot of talk nowadays in modern scouting and modern football about this like final frontier of about how you measure those kinds of things, and you can go and speak to lots of different people and like ex-players that they've played with or coaches that they've played with and try and get some kind of idea. But people have their biases, and like there's a story about Mane before he went to Liverpool, and they got a bad reference for someone that he'd like was a bad trainer and he was like late, and then he turns up and he's like a model pro and absolutely smashes it. So you do try and find out as much as you can, but a lot of it you have to take with a pinch of salt. I mean, when we sign players, we speak to them on the phone. We have Zoom calls like this with them and their agent to get some kind of idea. Um, it's obviously easier in Finland because it's a small world in terms of football and people know each other. But for the foreign guys, we'll always speak to them properly, like have conversations, go through what we're expecting of them. Like we'll meet with me, Stevie, and Rich often on the call to go through with the player. This is why we want you. And you get an idea of people's personalities through doing that, but it's not perfect. Um, so yeah, and I mean, I guess Tiki was captain last year. We're a young team, but there's people like Rata who've got lots of experience who's captain material. Valentin Gask is just basically become a warrior for the team since
Yeah,
he came in from a kid. He's basically turned into a leader for the team, hasn't he? When you can see it on the
yeah,
pitch, and
yeah.
you don't have to be there live to see that. You can see that on video as well.
And also you can see. I've always said you can see it when it's not playing.
Yeah. Um, so yes, we're a young team, but they've all starting to get loads of experience now because we've been doing it for a couple of years. There's young guys, that have played, and this is part of our player pathway that Rich will always talk about, is that by the time they're coming up to first team, they've played 50, 100 games already in adults against adults rather than against kids. And that's what we're all about.
Yeah.
I say we, I still say we.
I
Yeah, it
like
will
that. I
always
really
it'll
enjoyed that. You
always be
saying we,
we.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's my team now. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's, scouting's, we can do as much work as we can. It's very difficult. Um, but we're just trying to do enough work so they become more like 60-40s in your favor rather than 50-50 or worse.
yeah.
Um, so yeah.
You said that you'd only been over here once, but you made quite an impression with some people with your blog posts that you wrote about your visit over here. I mean, they were really well written. They were funny. I thought they were a little bit cheeky as well, and I did wonder what people at the club might have thought of that. Did you get any literary feedback from the club?
Well, so blogging is how I got into the game in the first place.
Right.
So I've never played or coached at any level. Um, my route into the game was basically by doing blog posts and using Twitter when Twitter was good before a certain gentleman took over it. Um, and was part of, I guess the data revolution. Like I don't know if you've heard of stuff like expected goals and all that sort of
Mm.
stuff, but I was in the original group of guys that were making that popular and getting it into the mainstream and
Oh,
making
right.
our own data models and stuff. So that's how I know Stevie from like years ago because we've been following each other on Twitter for well over a decade now, sadly. um, but so that was my way into the game. So I love writing. I studied journalism at university.
That explains a lot.
Never went into it. Um,
It's kind of a dying area in a way, isn't it? I
yeah,
think.
I mean the pay was bad even then, but it's just
Right.
more and more difficult to make money out of that kind
Mm.
of thing
Yeah.
these days. Um, even more so now. But I've always loved it. I've still have harbor ambitions of writing a book one day. Um, So yeah, plus I've absolutely obviously adored football since I could, you know, kick a ball when I was 4 or 5. Um, yeah, so I said to Rich, obviously I got permission from the club to be able to do it, and everyone that's mentioned in there has been a message to say, this is what I've written, is this okay? Um, so yeah, I again, what I love and what I love writing about in those and what I love reading myself if somebody else does it is if you're a football fan, you just like long to know what goes on behind those closed doors and what the stories are.
That's why we're
So
doing
I
this
try and get it.
podcast.
Yeah, it's about as close as I can get to giving that to people. Because I'd love to read that kind of stuff. Um, so yeah. And again, the football isn't #1 sport in Finland. We want to grow the game. I include my part. I'm not Finnish, but I've grown to love the people, the club, the country, and obviously loving football. So if I can make the game more popular and get more people reading and bums on seats in stadiums, it's all good.
Yeah, I think that's quite nice, and it ties in. Jules said about will you have some involvement in the future. I think what we're doing here is about trying to attract more people to SJK. What I've been doing with the Finnish football show for this is the 10th year now
Yeah.
is the same thing, and I think you add some real context and value to WhatsApp groups that we have around Ashley Core as well. So I hope you will stay in there and keep bringing your
Yeah,
insights.
of course.
It's
I was thinking before, and you've always told like fan forums on the internet, which were born many years ago and are notorious places for negativity and it's and fans discussing football. And I just like now I'm working in it and have been working in it for several years. Just like to just bring some reality to the conversation about football because it's really easy to be negative or like super positive. I'm just like, can we have some discussion in between, guys, where we're talking about the reality of the situation?
Mm.
Um, so I literally and still do read all the forum in Finland about all the different teams. It's sometimes a source of useful information for us as well. But just to keep a gauge on what the fans are thinking, what the fans are saying. And other people in the club don't, and lots of people in football clubs don't, but I always will and always do. So yeah.
interesting. That's what's going to bring us on to what we're talking about later, that we're all trying to develop the game and get more people to come and watch. And it seems like the Veikkausliiga, with its scheduling, wants people to stay at home and watch it on the telly.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you've thrown forward nicely to the end of the show there, Jules. That'll have
As I say,
people on the edge of their seats.
literally every team on the forums, the only fans of teams that are happy with it are the ones that are promoted because they're happy that they're there. But everybody else is like, oh, this fixture list is terrible.
And I remember it being this similar way 5 years ago. We had loads of Sunday games, and it was really tough. I mean, it might have been whatever coach we had at the time that wasn't helping as well. But still, Monday football.
And yeah, I don't mind Sunday home games. I don't mind Monday home games, but like it's the other when it's an away game, which of course it was always an away game for someone, it makes traveling impossible.
Mm, mm.
I
So
get the impression that you guys have liked the few Fridays that we had last year at home.
Yeah, personally, I said this to someone today that I got excited
I got
by
drunk. Sorry.
like coming home Friday and like get home at 4:30 and out of the door at 5 and down to the ground, and it was like the start of the weekend, and we had that several times. It was really, really good.
I mean,
I'm really gutted about
whether you win or lose, it's great. If you win, you sets up the weekend. If you lose, you can quickly try and move on and get on with
Yeah.
the rest of your weekend without worrying about it.
Yeah.
It's good.
Um, but now we talked about the fixtures. Let's come back to talking about Paul. But is there anything else to add or to ask Paul about the work he's been doing, or shall we go on to talking about the players for next year?
Shall we get the experts' inside knowledge about the players that we've signed in the postseason?
So, Jules, you wrote down a list of
Yeah,
half a
I've got
dozen
them
or so
here
players.
in order of signing.
Okay,
So
why not?
the top one is hang on, it's the top one is the one that we signed first. So
Yeah.
Elias Mastokangas, and then there's the last one is Arvi Liljaniemi. So which way do we want to do it?
Let's go first in, first appraised.
Okay.
And Paul, what we're keen to know is not whether you think they're a good player or not, because obviously everyone's been signed because we think they're good, but what we should look out for
Yeah.
from them, like their passing or their speed or their vision or whatever it might be, just so that when these new players come in, we've got something to get hooked onto.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
I'm just going to take a little sip of water first, so you
Please,
feel free
please
to
do.
edit this out.
Mark, we can do it alternatively.
Go on then.
I can't say the words. Edit that out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, do
We
that.
can take turns.
You go first.
Yeah. Okay, so the first one, or the last one, no, first one, which one are we doing it? Is Elias Mastokangas, who I believe is left back, 23 years of age, and he's on a 1+1 contract.
So, first interesting point, what reading Finnish forums and what people call left backs would more translate to more of a winger.
Right.
Okay.
So Elias is, and I'm sure you've seen him play. He scored a couple of goals against us previously, a couple of crackers.
Okay.
So he's an attacking midfielder. Again, because we're a fluid team. Stevie wants players that could play in several positions across the front. So Elias could play left, number 10, or right-hand side. He's mostly played left-hand side in his career. What I particularly like about him, and I think sometimes struggle with, is that when he makes decisions about what to do, he does them quickly. So he doesn't mess about in terms of putting a cross in or taking a shot. He's not scared, like to take risks to possibly lose the ball where other players might come back on themselves and pass it backwards. Elias is less likely to do that. And again, he fits the bill, as I say, to play in several positions across the front because Stevie likes the flexibility. He's proven he didn't score any goals last year, but he scored previous. And the thinking is that he can assist, he can score goals. He's done it before, and in a more attacking team, we think he can do it again.
And when you say, Paul, that we should recognise him because he scored against us,
yeah,
I know full well that Jules has great difficulty seeing the far end of the pitch. So whatever's going on down there is out of his line of sight anyway. And I'm trying to focus on singing the right words in the right order for the songs. So there's no
second language.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's no guarantees we recognise these, but maybe some of our listeners do.
And for me, there's always just 12 players on the pitch. Our 11 and their lot. There's one player.
Yeah.
So what about Marius Könkkölä? Apart from the fact that he looks like the love child of Erling Haaland and Joel Bockenpalo, does he play like that? Because that would be some player.
Marius is what young people would now call a baller.
Okay.
So when I first spoke to Stevie about him, because before he got brought up between the group, I'd kind of sat up and took notice in a couple of games. Basically, he dribbles past people like they're cones when he's on form. So we've got lots of forward players who are quick or like can push the ball past someone and cross it in on the run, but we haven't got loads of dribblers type. Or we had people like Peru before who was more of a passer than a dribbler. Marius is a dribbler. He can go past people for fun when he's on form. He's young, which obviously fits the bill. He's quick. When he plays well, and I say this like the words that come out of my mouth was like the mini Messi when he plays well. And obviously because he kind of bit parted in the last season with his last club. So what he needs to work on, obviously, is his consistency of doing it. And again, he's another player that was playing for a team that isn't as attacking as we are. Stevie likes his attacking players that are versatile. He's quick, he's young, and we think we can get more out of him. So, whereas Elias is a bit older, Marius is younger, bit less experience, and we think we can get more out of him. He's a potential star, but it's whether he can do it on a consistent basis. But dribbling wise, when he's on it, he's exciting to watch.
Excellent. Okay, a big name here. Prosper Padera. 18 years old. Yeah.
Yeah.
Holding midfielder, is that right?
Yeah, he probably could play any position in the midfield, to be honest, central midfield.
Well, Stevie will want to know, can he kill people? Because that's one of the key characteristics Stevie wants.
He did suggest he wanted midfielders that could kill people. I think
and defenders.
Sporting term.
Well, it's no secret, and I think he said it in the press, that we've been looking for this kind of colossal defensive juggernaut midfielder that will kind of help anchor the team when we're so attacking. And again, we need to find one that's really quick and mobile, and it's been difficult. I've said no to loads and loads and loads of players. We've never really found one, but it's kind of helped people like Marcus stamp their claim and stuff like that. So it's been really good, and he's played really well this season. So, but Prosper I think he's from Zimbabwe, but he's basically had scholarships in England where he's been training with
Brentford
academy kind of setups. Plus, he was at Brentford for a while, and again, he came over to trial and came over for a couple of weeks, way before Christmas. Well, I forget when it was. It would have been like late autumn, maybe, towards the end of the season. So we could get a look at him, because he's one of those where footage isn't available, and you would literally be looking at one of those infamous YouTube reels if you were to sign someone. So we had a good look at him first. And all the coaches loved him.
Was it from a first training session? Was it that kind of impact, or was it like after the end of the week kind of?
No, it was fairly immediate. But time will tell. He's young. He's 18. He's when he's not the 6'4" guy that we originally been looking for, but he's got the engine and he can play, and he's strong for his size.
A lot of the holding midfielders aren't that big as well. You know what I mean? The classic ones that.
Yeah, but again, we're looking for someone who's 6'4" who can move. They're unicorn-ish.
Yeah,
the smaller guys.
Yaya Toure retired a while ago, didn't they?
Yeah, so yeah, good potential. Coaches are excited about him, and he's going to get the chance to play regular football now, which I don't think he's probably had anywhere else. So that's what we're about.
We talked a little bit about Samuel Chuckwudi before. 21-year-old, Faroe Isles national, central defender. 195 centimeters, 1+1 contract. I don't know what it was. There was something about the picture. He looked big, and
he's a big boy. And
I don't know. It's weird how a picture can give you that feeling that he looks like he's gonna be good for us. What can we expect?
As I say, he's because we need guys that can move, because of the way we play and the way we want to defend, and play that high line so they can recover if the ball goes in over the top, so we don't get caught. He fits that bill. He's 21, but he plays to me like he's a proper defender, like old school defender. He's in the right position at the right time. If the ball comes into the box, it's him that's in the way of it. He's probably more positionally aware and better than maybe some of the other guys we've brought in before. I mean, lots of, like if you were to criticize Kelvin for something, 95% of the time he looks like an absolute Rolls Royce in this league, and then there's the odd lapse of concentration that might cause you a goal or two. this guy is kind of the kind of guy that keeps his concentration. He might not look as stylish as Kelvin might, but he brings that, steady head even on the young shoulders. So I expect him to be more like the dominant centre half rather than the ball playing one. And that's not to say he can't pass, because he can. He just organises well, and I think we need that.
With the players that have gone, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Aapo Hyypönen, is he for the academy, or is he going to be challenging for the first 11?
It's up to him, as I told him at the time.
Right. He's an attacker,
Nicola,
20 years old, 1+1.
Yeah, so he was on loan last year to MP.
Mm-hmm.
I really like him. He's rare beast in Finland, but he's
a unicorn.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah.
I think he's a bit more robust than a unicorn, to be honest.
Right.
He's a big lad, but he's mobile. If you smack the ball at him from 40 miles away in the air, he can win you headers. If you put it into his feet, he's very good with his feet. Most of the time, players like that are not very good at running in behind because they're not quick enough, but Aapo can. And I think him coming to probably a more professional setup, full-time professional setup at SJK with the facilities that we've got and the coaching that we've got, I'm excited. I think he's well within his capability to break into the first team by the end of the year.
Wow. And another one from MP Mikkeli is Arvi Liljaniemi, 20-year-old. We'll look at his. Jules has put left side defence and attack. So I don't know if that's another winger or if he's a defender or what he is. But he's coming a 1+1 contract.
Well, if you speak to Arvi, he will tell you he wants to be a left back.
Right. Okay.
Which is what we've mostly bought him for, but he is capable of playing further up midfield, winger. Excellent left peg, as most left backs generally do. Seems weird to say that, but when you get a nice lefty, they generally are quite a nice lefty. Bit more cultured than a righty most of the time.
Are you by any chance left-footed?
No, I'm not actually. No. We have struggled for a couple of years now, at least, with younger players at left back. We've been playing right-footed players in the left back position because we've not been able to find anyone that we like or that is willing to come. Arvi has basically been the kind of player that I've been going on about Arvi for well before summer, that I think he fits the bill perfectly of someone that can come into the academy and finally be that lad who does that while also potential for first team. And he's already played. He played the first pre-season game against Padera the other day. Did okay when he came on. He looked okay. Looked a bit nervous to start with, but he grew into it and started making a few overlapping runs that Rasa found him with. So he can, he's just a good, solid Finnish player that is capable, if he develops on, to make a career in Veikkausliiga. And as I say, it's been a problem position for us for a long time for the academy. So we've got him, I think he's 20 now, but we've also signed another young boy called Momodou Kangas, who will be in and around the academy games as well, who's a young Finnish international, who will be following up behind him. So going forward, I'm quite pleased that we've finally got that position sorted, because it's been a long time coming.
But is this where Babacar Fatty's playing? No, he's been playing on
the... Batty will mostly be play left back.
Yeah. Okay.
But again, he's unicornish. I think when he first came from Portugal, he was more or less like a right wing forward attacker. Yeah. And Stevie's converted him into this kind of all action left back, scoring goals, assisting, shifting into central midfield. Arvi is more of a what you'd call an orthodox left back or left wing back.
Okay.
So it's going to be if he's going to move to first team, he's going to have to learn to be able to fill in those positions as Stevie wants. But he's more than capable. He's a good footballer.
There's a couple of other people I'd like to ask about. One, because he joined right at the end of last season, and that is Momodou Bojang.
Yeah.
And then you made some very strong, positive comments about Lauri Laine in the WhatsApp group the other day. So I'd like to ask you just a little bit about those two players as well.
Yeah. So Momodou coming from a North African team, took ages to get it done. Wasn't happy there. Issues with his former club. He's gonna be a wild card because wherever he's played and been given minutes, he scored goals. Like at home in Gambia, he smashed it with one of the local teams there. He moved to Portugal, with like I think a second or third division team maybe. Smashed it there, and then he got a move to Scotland, to the Premier League in Scotland, and I think he was a bit of a rabbit caught in the headlights because the team was struggling, and he used to get brought on with 90 seconds to go.
Right, yeah.
And it was like, smash this ball as quickly and as fast as we can up front. And he missed a couple of chances, but the thing for me as a scout was he was there to get the chances that he missed. And I think it was just like a complete stylistic misfit, like Scottish football and him.
Mm.
So then he moved to this North African team and he scored goals there, scored lots of goals again. But then there's been some kind of falling out. So we kind of took advantage of that. He can be erratic, but his goal screen knows where the goal is. So he will do, if you put the chances on, like, with Jaime, if you put the ball in the box for him, he will find a way to get on the end of it. And he just makes stuff happen. Sometimes he doesn't look elegant, like Jaime didn't look elegant all the time. So this week against Padera, he won the penalty. His closing down, he's like rapid, like closing down defenders and the goalkeeper. And it was noticeable against Padera that he did that a few times. They got caught and we created chances out of it. So he's going to be a bit of an unknown quantity for the other teams and for us. But he's the kind of guy that makes things happen.
Before we move on to Laine, and while we're talking about Jaime Moreno and attackers, let's talk about the players that we don't have. So Jaime has left.
Yeah.
Do we need a replacement, or do you think there's enough goals in the team as it stands?
I think there's enough goals in the team. I think I've talked to Stevie about this before, and obviously it'll be a decision that he eventually takes. But people like Casper, I think is more of a striker. Strikes the ball so well. He's quick. He's a clever kid. I mean, you guys have spoken to him. He's quite mature for his age. I think he's quite clever. When the coach talks to him, he's going to listen and he's going to learn. I think he's a potential star. And already he scored 2 goals in this first game back this season. I think he could play striker. You've got Momodou that can play striker. Yere has got all the attributes to be a top striker. It's never quite worked out for him yet. But when he did get regular games the year before, he was scored. He had his chance in Italy, but I watched the team that he joined in Italy in the end, and it wasn't poor coaching. I think he can put that down. So he played really well in Italy, but again, for a bad team. Scored a couple, or scored at least one at the end of, I think he scored in the playoffs, didn't he? And then laid one on for Casper at the end. So there's goals there in Yere. It's got the physique. All the wide players have got goals and assists in them. If it was me, Stevie will kill me for saying this because he probably would like another one, but
Coaches always do, though. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Coach always wants new toys.
Except for maybe Maresca at Chelsea, he's probably got enough. But
Yeah.
I bet they buy someone in January though.
But on that, so we talk about Lowry, who is not new because he's been here for a year.
Mm.
And I put Ola Tessilimi in the same boat. Ola is the quickest thing I've seen on two legs. Unfortunately, he had the big knee injury, so we're not quite sure how he's going to come through. But if he's anywhere near what he was, he's another gigantic wild card, because he's another one that could explode and go abroad if he gets the minutes. I mean, he came from Africa and he played third team, second team, and he was round about the first team, and he made the switch like within months of like 6 months of getting here, which is rare.
Stevie and Richie both mentioned him at the meet the manager thing at the end of the season.
If Ola fires, he's a very good player, and the same with Lowry. And I said this after the second goal on Saturday against Padera. If he can make the right decisions, I think he tries to overdo stuff a lot of the time and like overplay and make it a bit too complicated. If he keeps it simple, he's, like the lad who went to Aberdeen last year from
Elias, was it?
My Finnish football show brain is completely blank.
Or was it Hoyiko?
Yeah,
that he left, or was it Ilves? But yeah.
So Lowry is twice the player that lad is.
Topi Keskinen.
Yeah,
that's the
Keskinen.
one. Yeah.
What Topi does really well, he's so direct. He doesn't mess about, which is fairly unfinnish. I'm allowed to say that, but and if Lowry learns to be a bit more like that, then he's gonna have the same impact. Plus, if he keeps fit, because he got injured pre-season and then had lots of trouble with hamstrings through. But seeing him before he came, when he was playing before Honka went bankrupt and he was playing in their games towards the end of the season, really good. He looked amazing in his first couple of games pre-season last year before he got injured. But if he's more than capable of absolutely smashing this league. I'm excited to watch him. He's really disappointed that both him and Ola were out last year, because I think they can really make an impact.
He's not the same kind of player as oh gosh, my brain has totally gone now. Who just left us? Number 10, centre midfield.
Peru,
thank you.
Yeah, they're nothing like each other.
Friend of the show, Jules. Friend of the show.
Yeah, I know. But I had it in my head, and just when I went to talk, I was like, Hanala, and then okay. But he was like our creative spark. So do you think that Lauri Laine can? I know they're different players, but can he be the creative spark with being in a different role?
Yeah, there's been interest in Peru for quite a while. That's come and gone, and we've always kind of, as we've said to all of the players, that if you get a chance to go somewhere good and it suits everyone, then you can go. So there's been Hannah is quite a unique player in that regard. It's like when he plays, everything kind of in possession, a lot of it revolves around him. Whereas we're going to have to play in different ways this season with him not there. We're going to have to learn, and Stevie will say, well, we'll have to learn to play. The principles will be the same in terms of what we try and do and how we play, but realistically, individuals' roles within that are going to have to change, because we don't have that kind of focal player that he would have been in that midfield. So it's possible that we'll be a bit more direct, go through the wings more this year, which is again why people like Elias have come, and Marius as well, just to bring something different, because there's not really anything like Peru in Finland out there. It's quite unique in that regard. So yeah, you have to do something slightly different. I've forgotten what the question was again, but
No, I think
Can Lino be that spark, creative spark?
yeah, all of them can.
Right.
Literally any of them. There's like 5 or 6 forwards. If you like Laurie, Casper, um, Marius, Elias, you know, not all of them are going to perform at the same time because if football's not like that. If someone isn't, then we've got enough good players that can take over and pick up the mantle and do it. And if they want to make it and they want to go abroad, and every kid that I ever interview or speak to on the phone or Zoom call, this first thing we say, like, if we're trying to get them here, what do you want to do in football? And the first thing they'll say is, I want to go abroad. So you've got to do it. If someone isn't, if you're going to make it, you've got to stand up and be counted. And again, it's part of the philosophy of this young thing to give those people the opportunities, and then not like, just Jaime's gone. We're not going to go out and buy an absolute dead cert to replace him because Casper's there, Mohamed's there. Rasa can play up front. Like, he's been a striker traditionally. He's been moved in this system, but there's Yeri's there. There's loads of people that can come in and have their proper chance.
And we get our first chance to see some of these new players in a kind of competitive football in the Liigacup coming up soon, Jules.
Yeah, so just in case you're not aware of the format, it's divided, the whole of the Veikkausliiga is divided into 2 leagues geographically, which I suppose you can say is north and south. And each team plays each other once because it's Finland, it's in the winter, they're inside games. And the top 2 teams from each groups then go into a semi-final and a final where the reward is, I'm not even sure there's a cup anymore, but nothing much, but well done.
And actually, the competition started. It started last Saturday, the 11th. Hoyikor lost at home to Gnistan, although it was, I think it was a team from, yeah, the Hoyikor crash, wasn't it? Basically, so, but also in that game, Gnistan brought on a 14-year-old who came on in the 60th minute, and got sent off in the 68th minute. Which is a tough. It's got. I don't know if it's his debut, but he's not going to have many games under his belt, so that's a tough christening. Yeah, but
threw his toys out of its pram, did he?
Yeah, exactly, literally, yeah. And so we're in a group with Kups, Ilves, VPS, Jaro, and Oulu. Yeah, so those games for us. Our group starts on Saturday the 18th, but our first game is away to Ilves on Saturday 25th of January. And the best place to find those fixtures is either on the SJK website, and if that's not updated yet, the Veikkausliiga.com website. You can look at matches, ottelut, and then filter the competition and filter the groups or whatever, and even select the team. So it's quite
it
good.
is on the SJK website anyway.
It's on there already, is it?
Yeah,
okay, yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
And also the Veikkausliiga things. I mean, do we need to go and talk about the Veikkausliiga?
Yeah, we had a little wine earlier, but let's explain a bit. Like the fixtures came out today. Some of them were leaked a couple of days earlier by one of the clubs, I think, and I just sat there thinking, this looks bad, but let's wait for the official ones. And now they're officially bad. I counted. For me, football is Friday and Saturdays. Well, obviously, growing up in the UK, traditionally it was Saturday, and my team Wimbledon still plays most of its games at 3 o'clock on Saturday. So, but the last couple of years we've had a lot of games on Fridays and Saturdays, Friday evenings, late Saturday afternoon. It's great. It's great part of the weekend.
Friday's all right especially if you're traveling as well. I mean, if you know it in advance, then if you're getting back at home at 1 o'clock in the morning or something like that, at least you don't have to go to work the next day. It's different than a Sunday night 6 o'clock, a Monday night 6 o'clock.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I counted, we've got 6 games on a Sunday and 4 games on a Monday. I didn't go into whether they're home and away or whatever, but that's not when I want to watch football. 5 p.m. on a Sunday. Our away game at Vasa, a big local rivalry, is 6:30 on a Sunday night. Like,
Well, it's normally a Wednesday, so I mean, there's not much difference, is there?
well, okay, maybe we do have
Vasa
some
is an
midweeks,
exception.
but
Vasa we can do. Vasa is an hour away, but it's
yeah,
like
but Sunday
Yarrow
is the
as well.
Sabbath, Jules. It's a day of rest. It's a day of sloth. It's not the day of getting on a bus and boozing all the way to Vasa and back.
Yeah, but Oma SB is my church.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Do enough praying there.
The one that caught my eye was Mariham have to come over to Seinäjoki at 1 o'clock in the afternoon or something. So that'll be a nice long trip for them.
Yeah, and an hour away
staying
game
over somewhere.
Actually, this year, Satu and I, the Cloppit group has got everyone really like activated in 2024 to travel more, and you know, they're even already seeing if anyone wants to travel to. Is it Yarrow for a practice game this
No,
year?
it's isn't it in the Leaguecup?
I thought it was a practice game they were talking about. But anyway, the activation of travelling fans is there, and Sato and I were like, yeah, let's go to Mariaham this year. Let's make a weekend of it, and it's at Easter, so it's like April. I'd rather go to the archipelago in the summer. Thanks very much, but okay, it's fine. That's unfortunate, but I think all the others, like, I don't know. I just feel really flat about the fixture list this year and when we're going to be playing our games. And I suspect even if the team does well again, you're not maximising your potential attendances on a Sunday afternoon at 5 p.m.
Yep. And I mean, as Paul mentioned earlier, Finland. It's not number one sport in Finland. So if you want to get an atmosphere, if you want to get people involved, then make football at a time when people can go and watch it.
That said, looking at the fixture list, we start with a game on a Saturday, followed by a game on a Friday, and another game on a Saturday. Let's just give people a little bit of a heads up. So beginning of April, Saturday the 5th, we're away to KTP in Kotka. Then Friday the 11th, home to SJK, home to HJK. That's an 8 p.m. kickoff. That's quite late, Jules. I guess that may be to do with travelling fans, but they'll be able to get here. They won't be able to get home very easily.
Yeah. Well, sorry, I missed that. When did you say?
Friday the 11th.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then Saturday the 19th is away to Mariaham. That's the Easter weekend.
Yeah. It's a big one to start with, isn't it?
Yeah, big the first home game. Yeah, that's quite
good time to play them. I think that is.
Yeah.
And I think as well is there. I'm just checking. Yeah, there is the Saturday the 28th of June. There's the pre-Saturday Provincy game again, like they had it last year. So that's the game you mentioned, Paul, at 12 o'clock. So the reason for that is because there's Provincy Rock Festival. So the idea is to get people to go to the game first and then go to the festival after that. It doesn't help Marienheim only.
Yeah, I was more looking at it from their point of view than ours.
It also doesn't help my daughter, who has a job in a local fast food restaurant, also has a job at the club in the ticket office on match days, and would quite like to see something of Provincy as well. So Evie, our thoughts go out to you. She won't listen to this. That basically we're pretty much out of time. So thanks, Paul, for joining us. It's been really interesting. Everything that I was hoping to hear about, and I'm sure the other SJK fans and hopefully those that came over from the Finnish football show agree with that. Remember, listener and new listeners, to subscribe to the show wherever you're listening or watching.
Yeah, I would just like to say I hope we get Paul back on as well, because he knows much more about football than we do. So it would be good. And remember, you can contact the Seinäjoki Supporters Podcast by email at seinäjokifootballpod@gmail.com. And you can find links to all our content at Linktree at Seinäjoki Football Pod, which went much better than I was expecting to go. And this is just, as I said, a pre-season knockabout. And that if you've got it, you've got it. And I
Yeah,
don't.
and you
So.
got something, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We also had the WhatsApp group that we've referred to a couple of times where we keep the conversation going between podcasts. Paul is also in there with us as well. It's open to any fan, so if of SJK. So if you want to join us, then send us an email. Let us know, and we'll send you the link to join. I've had a couple of people somehow get the link and try to join. And I've messaged them to say, hey, welcome, but what's your connection? And they haven't replied. So I'm not just letting anyone in, but if you're a fan, you're interested, ping us the message, let us know why, and we'll let you in the group.
Yeah, so until the next episode, see you at the stadium. But Wallsport, and just a reminder, SJK will win on Saturday because it is white versus gold, I believe. So online, team versus team. But that's only for season ticket holders and also, I believe, SJK juniors.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for listening, and until next episode. Hey, bye.
Goodbye.